I'm pleased to introduce Neville. He is my senior director consultant. And I found out a few things about Neville from his biography today. He moved to Alberta in 2006 to start a home renovation business after spending 10 years in a specialty coffee world, which I had no idea. He decided he liked building and renovating restaurants better than managing them. His company has been recognized as the best local contractor for the last 6 years. He's lived in St. Albert for the last 14 with his wife, Amy. Neville is a senior director consultant at BNI Alberta North and has been helping to support chapters, members, and leadership teams for 6 years. He's twice been a feature presenter at BNICanada's national conference and has been recognized with several awards in the region. And with that, Neville, over to you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I've got a hopefully interesting session here for you about reports, our favorite thing in BNI. Often when supporting chapters, we look at statistics and reports and start comparing members. We start comparing them one against the other. There's a more effective way. Use reports to start conversations. You may be asking, what is up with this guy in the box? Why is that on my screen? Well, from the outside perspective, we just see a picture of a guy in a box. We see the outside of the box, we see the feet. You know, are they smiling? Are they frowning? Are they eating? Are they even alive? Or is that even a real person? We don't know because we're just looking at it from this outside perspective saying, yeah, it's a guy in a box. Similar to how we can look at a report and say, yep, that member's good, that member's not good. When we start conversations and we start asking questions and building that relationship with people, we start to learn what really is going on inside. So inside the box or inside that person or inside their membership. What I'm going to show you is some ways on how to look in between the numbers, find new ways to interpret numbers, and not always take the numbers as just plain cold hard facts. We often make typical comparisons between numbers when we look at a report, whether it's a member commitment report or it's a member traffic lights report. We look at numbers and we just start making those assumptions like, oh, their one-to-ones are really low. They must not really want to build their business. Or they've got 3 substitutes and 2 absences. They must be a horrible member. They don't want to be here. Or their 5 score is under 50, or they're a red traffic light. Why are we keeping them? What we really need to do is look at the bigger picture, look at the details on each of those lines in that report, and use our knowledge about the member to really start asking those questions. Attendance is one of the things that we look at first. Accountability. Is the person even coming to the meetings? Are they fulfilling this most basic kind of requirement that we talk about right from the very first day as a visitor, all the way through the process? But we need to not just look at it as a blank number, but once again ask those questions. What is the real story? Is this member, what position does this member have in their company? Where are they at in their business right now? What is their business cycle? This is something that I speak to members in our region about regularly. Is we have to be understanding we're all people. We're not robots. It's not just work in, work out, and that's it. Our businesses have cycles. Accountants can attest that, February, March, April, forget it. Like they barely have time to answer the phone, let alone do extra one-to-ones, extra learning, and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's natural that maybe their contribution levels to the chapter will dwindle a little bit during that time. But we know that as soon as that time is over, they're going to be back at it, working twice as hard to contribute and show the thanks back to the chapter for everything they've received during that when they were slower. Similar to in the construction industry, typically summer is busy construction industry. So when you have tradespeople in your chapter or in a chapter, they're going to be so busy just trying to keep all of their crews going, all their customers happy, their suppliers and materials, everything moving at a right pace, that they're not going to necessarily be focusing as much time as we would like them to on their membership. But we know that with the right coaching and the right conversations, that they will come back to do that as business slows down. So I like to use reports to look deeper. We often look at, thank you for closed business as a number, and use it as kind of the sniff test on how good the referrals are that member is passing. Well, if they have, a reasonable amount of referrals and a high amount of closed value, those are really great referrals. But it really doesn't tell you the whole story. Who is that member's contact sphere? Where is their natural personal network? Just because somebody works for an electrical contracting company and maybe specializes in commercial electrical contracting, where they're talking, $20, $30, $50, $80,000 on a contract, doesn't mean that the person that is sitting in the seat in the chapter, that their personal network is also able to generate those types of referrals. If you have somebody that is in the more administrative side of the business, they're representing the business, and they're asking for referrals for what the business needs. But if they spend most of their time in an office and their personal network is their neighbors, their parent-teacher type committee for their kids' sports teams, some of their hobbies, and people at their gym or what have you, just because they work for an electrical contractor doesn't mean that we can assume that they're going to be generating, hundreds of thousands of dollars of thank you for closed business to the chapter. The only way we're going to know this is if we sit down and have those conversations and we get to know our members. And so it's something we really want to encourage, not just ourselves as directors, as we're supporting members and showing leadership teams how to look at reports, but we want to obviously build these relationships with the members themselves. Another kind of judgment call that we make sometimes is the ratio of inside referrals versus outside referrals. Does it look reasonable? Is the person that is in the chapter referring to outside, or are they referring just to themselves and their immediate family, generating that kind of buyer's club mentality? How do we look at those numbers a little bit differently, and once again start the conversations? If the members' internal referrals, inside referrals, are really high, rather than saying, well, this person just doesn't want to pass referrals, how about asking that member, how are you preparing for one-to-ones? Are you preparing for a one-to-one from a buyer's mindset? Are you going in expecting to be sold something, expecting to buy something? Or are you going in with a list of questions asking how to refer the person you're going to see? How do I bring you more business? Are you going into that education and that learning and that relationship building mindset? So these are the types of questions, rather than making that snap judgment, oh, they don't want to refer. It's, hey, how can we help you start going into those one-to-ones and start educating yourself with the giving mindset? Here's a report, and we look at this and we see lots of numbers, lots of colors. These aren't real numbers, but some of you may recognize the names. These numbers on here and the colors themselves, can be an instance like, well, Jason can't be as good as Shannon because he's red and she's green, and that's it. But this is where we have to start taking our knowledge of our relationships, our knowledge of our members, about the culture of the chapters. What else is the information telling us? So I'm not sure how many of your regions use this report. This is called a member commitment report. It is on BNICanada. It is the very last one under chapter reports, if that's activated in your region. This is something that BNI Alberta North we use primarily as our member metrics and tracking. And then one number that we look at primarily is this one called fives. And people ask, well, what does fives mean? Well, fives, tracks 5 different things. It tracks your attendance. It tracks your referrals given inside, your referrals given outside, your referrals given together, your referrals, your visitors, and your one-to-ones. Each of those things are giving, right? So this tracks what a member is able to give back to the chapter, give back to the other members. Our standard metric is, we would love for everybody to be above 100, because that means each week, on average, they're attending the meeting or having a substitute come in their place. They are giving 1 referral. They are bringing 1 visitor a month, and they are doing 1 referral where they're one-to-one where they're learning about somebody, and then they're hosting 1 person to teach them about their business in a one-to-one. So if they're doing that on average every single week, they'll be in 100. But lots of times, once again, we fall into that trap of, oh, this person is only a 57, they're not very good. But if we know Jason, perhaps he is a realtor, and this is the absolute craziest time for a realtor. And we can see that he has got a ton of referrals because there's lots of people interested in selling their homes, or at least that's they're getting the referrals for that. But he's maybe only been able to give 8 referrals. So this is where us as director consultants are going to either have a one-to-one with him during our passport mentor time, or we're going to talk to the leadership team about how they work with him and say, hey, why does this discrepancy exist? How are you speaking to your clients, your fellow realtors, your office mates, so on and so forth? And are there other opportunities to refer, versus, hey, you're shaking the finger, you're getting a lot of referrals and you're not giving nearly enough. What's wrong with you? Which sometimes is that that knee-jerk reaction that we have. So, but when we know about take the time to learn about him and his business, we can start asking these questions and having these conversations. Sorry, I'm going to flip back here. The other thing is, we automatically sometimes start looking at these comparisons about, one-to-ones versus number of referrals, inside referrals, outside referrals, or number of visitors given. And the relationship between those numbers can also help you ask, give you pause to ask questions about that member and that member scenario. So you can use this as a tool to write yourself some questions, and as you prepare for a one-to-one with this member. So, and it doesn't have to be negative. Reports aren't there as a weapon. Reports are there as a tool for good. So we want to say, hey, 72 one-to-ones, that's amazing. How do you do that? How do you make your schedule work around that? And then you're going on a positive spin. The member's going to say, hey, this is actually the tool that I use. This is my calendar link system. This is how I block my time. This is how I do a lot of different things. So now you've learned something, and now that you can continue to share, and it completely legitimizes that number, and you can use that as a stepping point for another conversation. It's like, could you use those similar tools to help find referrals, or help build a visitor list for people to invite, or for people to invite to feature presentations? There's so many different ways to start conversations just by looking how numbers compare to each other. The member traffic lights report, once again, some of you might be more familiar with this report. It is it all comes based on the same statistics, the same basic data. It's just read out in a different way. So this report here, there's only a maximum of 100, and each category is scored on that traffic light system of red, yellow, green. And it's great because I look at this and I see, member number 2 here, they're second in the chapter. This is real statistics from a real chapter. They're second in the chapter, but their CEUs are red. So what is the first thing I'm gonna ask, considering there's only a handful of members in that chapter whose CEUs are there? I'm going to start the conversation about how do they access BNI University? How often do they listen to podcasts? What is their technology like? Have they been to any in-person meetings? What is their travel situation like? If we were in person and we were going to an in-person live training, do they have their own car? Do they take public transit? All of these things are ways to start questions versus going in and saying, hey, your CEUs are low and you just need to fix them. And here's all the ways that you can do that. Let me know when you're yellow or green, and we'll talk some more. That can sometimes be that knee-jerk reaction. So we need to look at this red and say, hey, that's an outlier. That's a little bit different than the majority. Let's ask some questions about why that is. And it could be simple that the member is listening to all of their podcasts versus the podcast app versus the BNI Business Builder app, and they're not tracking their minutes correctly. It could be something really, really basic like that. Once again, it's all about trying to find ways on here to help members get more from their membership and how to do more for their business, not just do more to be a better BNI member. That is the challenge, right? We don't want members to just be great BNI members, because they just think of everything we teach them in BNI as a BNI task, and they have no way to kind of port that from the BNI world over to business. So in my opinion, it is really important to make those distinctions as often as possible. So a few key takeaways, Stephen. Where are we on time?
We're doing really well, Neville. We've got 12 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So my key takeaway here is use reports not for evil, but use them as a tool for good. Don't slash and burn and think these reports are the be all and the end all. There is always a story behind a number. Positive attitude, teach, don't preach, talk, don't mock. All of these catchy phrases. It's all about staying positive with a smile on your face. Never let a member think that you're there to attack them because their statistics don't match up to others. Think about the member and put yourselves in their seat, in their shoes, and say, what's in it for me? By doing more CEUs, by increasing my chapter education units, what is in it for me? What is that going to do for me and my business? Put money in my bank account, put food on my table. That is such a huge connection to make for so many members about making that connection, because a lot of the BNI business builder stuff is BNI centric. So we have to use a little bit of imagination on how to show members to take that and create actual business improvements from it. And lastly, we should steer away from ever focusing on a member to do something specifically in BNI that is not going to be translated into their business. So to have somebody sit down and do 5 hours of BNI Business Booster training on membership committee, just so they can be a great membership committee member, that sounds honorable to us as directors. But really, it's spend this time on the membership committee training, and you'll be able to learn things to help manage your employees better, help you manage your soccer team better, conflict resolution, all of these types of things. So we need to know what is going to make that member tick and what's going to make them make that training or whatever we're asking them to do click with them, which is all through conversations. So go out there, start some conversations, and make your members get more from their membership. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Neville. I think you've really hit the nail on the head with the what's in it for me from a member perspective. And I think that's something we really need to look at from a perspective, is taking it from, as you say, going to the story behind the stats and translating it to the membership to say, this is what you get. This being on the membership committee helps you with interview skills for your business. I'd like to open the floor up to questions, comments, feedback here. We've got lots of time to chat, bring out some ideas.
question?
Sure.
If a chapter is not used to ever seeing their stats and reports, how do you introduce it to them, and how do you introduce it to them, and how do you make it part of their regular life?
Great question, Lawrence. The first time chapters, if they're not used to seeing statistics and reports up front, it can be a little bit shocking. I really think that the best way to, if you have a chapter that is not sharing this regularly, you have members that aren't seeing this regularly or have never seen it before at all, introduce it to them during a chapter builder meeting and have an open and honest conversation about what they're about, and tying in a lot of what I've just spoken about, how this is not about comparing Bob to Susan or Jack to Sally. This is about seeing how much you're putting into relationships in your chapter, which will then, with giversgain, translate into eventually what you can hope to get out of your BNI membership. And tell them that we're going to be talking about this more often, and it's not, once again, not as a tool for evil. This is not to make them feel bad. This is to help them find new and different ways to contribute to their fellow chapter members. Does that help?
Yeah, I like the closed door chapter builder meeting. And then, do you, like with the reports, do you put them in your chapter slideshows? Like, do you email them out to people? Like, how do you communicate them?
Lots of really successful chapters share this during their vice president's report each week.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Each week. Oh, okay.
Each week, yeah. So, and once again, you might have to, build a rhythm to get up to there if you don't want to shock the system too much. But you might have to build up to that. But yeah, lots of really successful, highly focused chapters share this each and every week. And don't necessarily dissect it in front of everybody on the room, but they go and let people can find where they, what has changed for them in the last couple of weeks. That's the key thing, is seeing that your referrals that you're giving are starting to make a difference. The one-to-ones that you've taken extra time out of your week over the past month or two are starting to make a difference. And hopefully members will start seeing those correlations between, I'm able to do more one-to-ones. So I've actually received some more referrals, or I've been able to connect with somebody I never thought I was going to connect with because I have been increasing my one-to-ones.
Thank you.
So I have a question. So who is the person in the chapter that would pull the traffic lights report and take it to a one-to-one and discuss it with the member? Is it membership? Is it mentor, president, or can anybody do that?
So the member commitment report is available for anyone to look at. I think it's wise for everybody to look at it on a fairly regular basis so they can understand where everyone is. If this is a specific coaching conversation around general improvement on something, I would say that should come from preferably first somebody that is a mentor in the chapter, somebody that has hopefully a good rapport with the other member. So if you have one member that is challenged on the number of one-to-ones that they've done, or you're seeing lots of activity but not able to haven't given any referrals, go into do the prep work and know how you're going to approach it. But I would start with that, somebody with a good rapport on the mentor committee, and go in and start the conversation. It should never be an attack, though.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I just if I was to ever pull that, I would look where they're strong and say, okay, how do you do that? Like, how are you so strong in this area? Get them engaged that way, and then just go down the line, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe ask them, how can I help you in the area where you're struggling?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I ask them what are the tools that you're using? How are you, like you said, how are you getting these results? What can we do to use a similar system to drive results other places?
Right.
Yeah. Thanks, Carrie. Harvey?
Neville, if you can back up a slide or two with that, the colored traffic lights are. I just want to know, back one more, please. like, where is a good place to start in a conversation? So you said the 5 score. Like, would it be starting at the like the palms? Like, are they there? Are they committed? First of all, like, well, what's your best?
See, it completely depends on the member and where they are and what you're trying to achieve. So if you were, well, take me on this list, for instance. So here I've got, you know, a 92. You know, I would say, what's the purpose of the conversation that you're having? Is it to help engage me on bringing more visitors? Is it to congratulate me on having, you know, 23 presents? Is it what am I trying to do here?
Okay, understood. So if
But
I
I start, the key takeaway should be that don't have that conversation. Just say, well, you've only had 3 visitors, so you're not inviting people. And focus the conversation all around how to invite more people, because that might not be my problem, right? I've only had 3 visitors because there's other, you know, maybe it's a few different things. Maybe once again, I'm not in the outward facing part of my business, right? I'm not in front of the 10 or 15 or 20 different new people a week that I was 5, 6, 8 years ago. So it's a little bit, I have to learn a different way to find opportunities to invite. So that's maybe where the conversation would be around. But you knowing that about me is going to help you start that conversation.
Right. So I'm looking at number 4, May. There is 0 visitors. Like, I know these are fudge numbers.
Yeah.
Being with COVID or being with the Zoom calls, very hard to go face to face and hard to go knock on a door now. Like, how would they start a conversation about visitors?
I wouldn't necessarily even go into it with about trying to solve that problem. I would go into it, say, hey, May, tell me what is a normal week in your business look like?
Okay.
Right. And open the conversation with them, have them walk me through. And then I'll have a deeper understanding of her and her business and how they operate. And then I can start, once again, saying, not going into, here's how you can invite more visitors, but ask the question about, how often do you meet other business owners during those meetings that you have, right? And see where it goes. And then if it, you know, whatever she answers, ask the next question, and eventually get there's like, yeah, she, you know, and you want her to be able to say, I should invite them one time. Absolutely, that's such a great idea, May. Why don't you do that? Right? Always the idea is to get them to suggest what you want to ask them.
Right. Okay, good.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Harvey.
We're at 1:59 right now, so I think we will wrap it up. Once again, thank you, Neville, for the fantastic presentation. I know we're not supposed to say that, but I got a lot out of this today. We did have that chat earlier in the WhatsApp chat for BNI Alberta North. But I think really that approach of, you know, coming at it from a supportive role, that we're not here to slap you on the wrist, but just to see what's going on and see how we can help you is really a wonderful thing. So
I just have one more comment. I think these traffic lights are also good for us, because if we're struggling in an area, we can look at them and see who's strong in that area, and then book a one-to-one with them and say, how are you doing this? Because I'm struggling.
Absolutely. That is a great way to kind of line up people and that kind of unofficial mentoring and team building.